So welcome guys, for today we're going to do a theory crafting session of a build that I'm going to play or planning to play. So for now I think I'm going to level a new character, which is a Raider Debeon's Dirge Bladestorm. So I'm sick of playing Pathfinders. You can see for the past few, I think for the past few 2 or 3 leagues I've been playing Pathfinder because I hate fixing my resistances. So this time, because we're playing Bladestorm, and with Bladestorm, you really need high movement speed and permanent phasing for it to feel smooth. So that was one of the drawbacks a while ago while I played Pathfinder with it. Voidforge Pathfinder is the build that I went for in the past. And Bladestorm, I think, is one of the most overpowered melee skills at the moment. Although lightning, not including lightning strike, of course, lightning strike is broken. But one of the competitive melee skills right now is Bladestorm. So we are a raider. We're going to go with the Avatar of the Veil because of the permanent phasing or avoid ailments while phasing, and nearby enemies have all elemental exposure, and quartz infusion for the easy suppress and permanent phasing, so I don't have to get suppressed from my other guild slots, since as you can see most of my gears are unique. So for the weapon, wait a minute, let's just start with the passive tree first. So since we're using Debeon's Dirge, we already have a lot of elemental damage percent. So what I did here in the passive tree, I didn't went for the let's say inefficient percent increase damage anymore, because as a raider we already have a lot of percent increased attack damage and cold damage from here since we're using a cold steel. Let's get back to that later. So for now, I go down here and went for a jewel socket here. Again, we're using second sight again. I really like using second sight with builds that don't or can't apply brittle, because as you can see, Debeon's Dirge has only have a 5 base crit, so it's going to be a really expensive if you don't go for second sight. Like for example, you're going to need a base crit hatred, and in my opinion it's not worth spending 8 to 10 divines just for that base crit. So I just went for second sight and went here for crit chance is added by excuse me for that. Critical strike chance increased by chance to suppress spell damage. And of course we are raider and we grab a frenzy charge here. So particularly the notables or the timeless jewel stats that we're looking for are mainly increased duration of ailments. So this time we don't need Alchemist Genius anymore. So we go down here and get Fangs of Frost. Although Fangs of Frost is not efficient since most of our damage will be coming from fire, but we really need the mastery, which is the freeze duration on enemies when I plan to do uber bosses. Hopefully this build can handle it. But for now, for general mapping, I just went for physical damage converted to physical to cold. And since we're using southbound gloves, and we can only kill with our hits frozen enemies. So just in case we encounter enemies or arch nemesis mods that can't be frozen, so Mark for Death will do the culling for us. So since we're using Debeon's Dirge, which is an axe, we get to access a lot of, I think, insane masteries, like for example this. Since we're using southbound, we don't need the Eldritch Implicits, Exarch Implicits, Rage on hit. We're going to get the rage already here in this mastery, in this axe mastery. So next important notable is this Thread of Hope jewel. I went for a large. So because for the point investments, it's really efficient. We get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We get 6 points, including the Spirit Void, so it's 7. So for one jewel socket, we can allocate 7 points across this area. So and then we went for the 2-hand mastery, chance to deal triple damage. So this might, at first glance, this might really not help, but since we're playing Bladestorm, and if we can get the Helm enchant plus maximum number of Bladestorms, so at a point in time, we have 4 Bladestorms released. So 3% can easily translate into, so 4 Bladestorms, this can be translated into 12% triple damage. So in the past, I've tested this, and with this mastery, you can really notice the spike in damage. So since we go down here for the Disciple of Slaughter, since we're stacking Frenzy, and I'm going plan to use just one large cluster. So to help, since we're using the Magnet in this build, so here, so we need at least 200 strength for us to get 10% chance to deal double damage. I think if you plan to min-max this build, you might have to go with 400 strength, but I didn't went for that since the goal for this build is to do fast mapping or juiced mapping, and at the same time uber bosses, and let's hope we can handle that. So to help with strength, I went for Martial Mastery, Martial Prowess, and Sure-Footed Striker for another 5% double damage. So we get Call to Arms, and we use General's Cry, since its cooldown is only 4 seconds, so we can take advantage of the Warcry recently given by Debeon's Dirge. So this is we travel through here. I went for a Cold Steel Jewel since this Axe Mastery or Axe Wheel is very good. So Slaughter gives us +5 maximum rage and a ton of attack speed and damage. And Cleaving gives us a free Intimidate. And you can also, with Cold Steel, you can also get Corrupted Immunity for dirt cheap, I think. So for the gems, for Bladestorm, I went for Pulverize, Multi-Strike, Ice Bite, Inspiration, and Trinity. So for the 99% of the game, you'll be using Trinity since you only switch to crit damage or elemental penetration when dealing with I think with uber bosses, because with my experience from my Reef build, I had a hard time freezing uber bosses, especially during their reduction phase at the start of the fight. So I might switch to increase crit damage this time just to be able to freeze them, because technically if you're using Trinity, you're basically fighting the uber bosses with only a 5 link, since you're not proccing the Heatshiver helmet that we're using here. So it's really a big downside if you're going to use Trinity there and you don't have enough damage. And Bladestorm is notoriously good because it's strong because of its multiple hits, because you can release 4 Bladestorms at a time. It's not famous for being a big hit skill. So that's why I went for a Southbound Gloves just to be sure for the 100% freeze duration, so I can freeze high HP bosses. And again, we can just switch here for if we plan to do uber bossing. I went for the conversion because Debeon's Dirge have a decent flat phase roll. Again, I haven't inputted most of the gem links. So these are the core gem links. So the traditional Assassin's Mark on hit for our crit. So for the auras, I'm thinking I drop hatred because I don't have enough mana reservation efficiency. As you can see, um, I didn't went for champion of the cost because since they nerfed or removed the mana efficiency, 15% mana efficiency of skills, I think it's not anymore. It's not worth it to travel 5 points for that efficiency. So maybe I can just get a small cluster efficiency here for hatred if I plan to fit it in the future. So I went for Held of Ice, Determination, Precision, Blood and Sand, and Defiance Banner. And I forgot to add, we're going to use Cast when damage taken, Molten Shell. And for the defense, since we're already here in the gem links, I went for Determination and Defiance Banner. And I plan to get or buy a Corruption. I hope it exists. Fortify, supported by Sacketed gems are supported by Fortify. And since we are a raider, I didn't went for Grace anymore because we already have a ton of evasion coming from Avatar of the Slaughter and from this passive node, and as well as evasion from Gear and Jade Flask. So I just went for Determination and Defiance Banner. So for the curse setup, if I plan to invest in this build, I'm going to get an additional curse in my body armor and use Frostblink, Bone Chill, Hex Touch, and Elemental Weakness. Or if an item exists with Frenzy and Elemental Weakness, I might do that as well. And so I am not forced anymore to Frostblink in the face of the bosses or mobs. Next, for the gears, again, we're using Debeon's Dirge. This is also nice because it gives us 150% elemental damage if we've used a Warcry recently, and this General Cry again has 4 seconds. This we can maintain it permanently. As well, it has a 50% movement speed, which is also nice. And again, since this motherfucking helmet exists, we're going to use it as long as they don't nerf it. So for the chest, we just use a Hunter Influence Triumphant Lamellar or Full Dragon Scale with base crit, since we have only have 5 base crit. And for the glove, I just went for a cheap +1 max frenzy southbound gloves. For the boots, we just need a brittle ground while moving here to get 100% crit cap. And for the amulet, I'm still deciding if I would go double influence Shaper Redeemer amulet with penetration and generic elemental penetration. So let's see if I've decided on what stats should I go for here. Or most of the time, people nowadays pair Heatshiver with what's that amulet? I think it's Yoke of Suffering. But I think since I have many uniques already, my life might go too low. So I prefer using a rare amulet here. And since we already have we're applying Bone Chill already, and we already have Intimidate, increased damage taken stats is not big of a deal anymore. So next, for the rings, we're just going for the standard Mark of the Elder Steel ring, and shape paired with shaped ring. So if you plan to min-max this build, of course, you can go for um, implicit maximum frenzy, which costs a lot of divine, so I didn't went for that because it defeats the purpose of making a budget build. And for the build, since we already have percent increased damage, for this slot, the best I think best stat to use is a chance to deal double damage coming from the magnet, and we can also get crit multi or maximum life or movement speed or crit chance as an implicit. And flux charges gained is a very useful stat since we're using flash charge on crit on our granite and diamond flash, so we can maintain almost permanent uptime of this flash during boss fights. I think that's about it. I need to fill up this area before I can post the POB. So again, thank you very much. If you like the content, I would really appreciate if you like and subscribe. So have a nice day, guys.